Hey everybody, welcome to the Jeff Rubin Show. I'm Jeff Rubin, joined today on the old Skype-omophone by Steve Heinrich, designer and editorial director at Jellyvision Games, who are probably best known for their game show video game, You Don't Know Jack. Welcome to the show, Steve.
Thank you, Jeff.
Now, I am a longtime You Don't Know Jack fan, but for those that aren't, how would you describe this product?
You Don't Know Jack is, well, we call it a twisted trivia game. It's where high culture and pop culture collide. We kind of do a little bit of keeping up with the current pop culture trends, twisting that with, classic, high culture facts that you learned in school. So kind of keep it a little bit more fresh and funny.
And it's a video game. It's like a game show that you participate in as in the form of a video game, right?
That's right. Yeah. So it's sort of like there's a host, and the host of the game is Cookie Masterson, and he's hosted the game for some time now.
This is Cookie, and sure, you can kill me now, but then you'd never learn the truth about your parents.
And he sort of asks questions.
Imagine one of the hippos in the game Hungry Hungry Hippos starts courting a female from across the board. If he performs the mating ritual of an actual hippo, what will he do? Eat more marbles than other males, spit marbles into her face, hoard marbles for her, or poop marbles onto her?
And you respond by, using your mouse or keyboard.
Oh yes, a male hippo attracts a female by using his tail to spray feces on her.
And you just kind of alluded to this, but this product has been around for a while. How old is You Don't Know Jack now?
Well, actually, the first game was released in 1995, and so that is a long time ago. That was for PC. And then it had quite a run there for 5 or 6 years. We did multiple versions on PC. We did a couple of books. We did a couple of internet versions. And then we actually eventually did a TV show that starred Paul Rubens, who many of you might know as Pee Wee Herman. Or maybe you just know him as Paul Rubens.
You're a big Buffy the Vampire Slayer, not the TV show, the movie fan.
That's right. That's right. Maybe you know him from his writings. I don't know. I don't know if he writes anything. But anyway, so we that lasted for all of about 6 weeks. But anyway, we had some tabletop versions. Anyway, it's been so that kind of when the PC gaming started to die down a little bit and consoles took over. You Don't Know Jack sort of fell off the face of the earth for a few years, and then we started to get back into it a few years ago with Xbox, PlayStation, Wii, and so forth. And then now we've gone into iPhone, and now we're on Facebook.
All right, so that's a very large overview of it. Let's take that step by step. Let's go back to the beginning. How did this project get started?
Well, back in the day, there were about 4 or 5 folks around here. I wasn't one of them quite yet, but there were about 4 or 5 folks around here that, if we were going to make a game, what would we do? And everyone here, kind of hated trivia games. So obviously they decided to make a trivia game. But what would we do if we were to do a trivia game that we would enjoy doing? Because most of the time trivia games suck. They take a long time to play, and it's about trivia. No one cares about.
Yeah, that's interesting you mention that because there's basically a trivia video game, a game show video game, on literally every single platform since the beginning of video games. But as far as I can recall, outside of You Don't Know Jack, I don't know that any of them have ever been good. Is that right? Are there any that inspired you guys where you were like, oh, these people did it right?
Oh, no, I don't want to put down every other trivia game, Jeff, but I would say that, yeah, you're absolutely right.
Generally, the Wheel of Fortune Game Boy game, the Jeopardy Nintendo game. These are things that, there's probably a Jeopardy video game on every platform. And I've played a few of them over the years, but I don't know that any of them are really very fun.
There was one that we played a few years ago when we were doing some research for the recent console version of the game, and they had the characters on it. And you were supposed to be one of these characters. I mean, it was really scary. I have to admit, I was kind of scared by the depictions of humans that they put into this game.
Right, you can pick which human you look like. You can cycle through them at the podium.
Right, and unless you look like an undead, futuristic version of a human, then you're probably not going to find one that looks much like you.
So what was your inspiration for doing this? What did you guys think that you could do better than other trivia games had done before?
Well, that's what they were like, if we were to do a trivia game that we want to play, what would we do? Well, it would include references to the Brady Bunch and to toys that we enjoyed playing with when we were growing up, and pop culture references like that. So that's when You Don't Know Jack, we always say, kind of became the mixture of high culture and pop culture, where you could ask about Scooby-Doo and Shakespeare in the same question.
And can you give us, off the top of your head, do you know an example of one of those?
Oh, well, just using that example I just told you, like one of the classic ones is what do Scooby-Doo and Hamlet have in common? And it's they'll have 4 answers, and one of them's they both knew a Daphne. They were both Great Danes. And that's kind of how it works. So you can see how it comes together like that.
Because Hamlet is Danish? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Oh, okay. Even with you explaining it to me, I still was like, I still had some trepidation about my answer.
Well, that's why we call the game You Don't Know Jack.
But that's why I think I always enjoyed it, is because there's no single area of trivia I know a lot about, but I know a little bit about a lot of different things, and this kind of pulls them all together.
Yeah, that's one of the things we like that we think makes the game more accessible to people, is because maybe you might not know about Shakespeare, but you might know about Scooby-Doo, and that could help you answer the question. So that's if you know a little bit about Dr. Phil, but maybe you don't know a little bit about, Dr. Albert Schweitzer, you might have a better chance. So that's kind of how we approach it.
Did you or did anyone on your team ever have any actual game show experience, or was this a first trivia writing thing for all of you?
It was a first stab for all of us, and we've employed over the vast time that this game's been out there. We've employed people who have gone on to work in television, and like I said, we did the TV show for a while, so we did get our feet our toes in the water there. But no, when we first came up with this game, and no one here had any game show experience.
And how many people are working on this? How many people does it take to put together a You Don't Know Jack?
Right now, we've got a staff of about, working specifically on the Facebook version of You Don't Know Jack, we probably have a staff of about 12 folks working on that, from engineering. Like I said, our host, Cookie Masterson, who actually, we're here in Chicago. He's in New York, so he records in New York. And we write the stuff here for him and send it off to him. And we update every other day on Facebook. So we have new content coming out all the time.
But how many writers are there?
Writers, there are currently 6 of us.
So how do you guys do this? How do you, blank page, you got to come up with a question. How do you decide what you're going to be writing a question about?
Well, a lot of it is writers go off and sort of just do it themselves, but we also have every couple of days we have meetings where we say, okay, what's in the news right now? What's going on? For instance, speaking of Jeopardy, actually, Alex Trebek just had a mild heart attack over the weekend. So
what can we do about that? What's funny about that?
Exactly. Well, what isn't funny about it? No, I'm just kidding. So yeah, that's what we do. We had a meeting about that today. We talked about maybe you heard about the giant tortoise. The last giant tortoise from the Pinta Islands that
Lonely
died.
George.
Yeah, Lonesome George.
Lonesome George.
Yeah, and so we thought about, so that's the kind of stuff every couple of days all the writers come in and say, hey, what if we did a question about, this person who died or whatever.
Do you have to be careful to make sure that the questions cover a variety of topics? Like, say you're a big Scooby-Doo fan. Is there a deliberate effort to make sure that all the questions aren't about Scooby-Doo?
Yeah, we definitely try to keep it a wide variety and try to keep it a little more current. One of the interesting things is when we first started doing this game back in '95, it was a little bit more about nostalgia for when 20 to 30 years ago. Like back in the early '70s, there's a lot of stuff about the Brady Bunch and Gilligan's Island and that kind of stuff. And then as the game sort of evolved over time, I think now we stick a little bit more to current pop culture. So you'll find a little bit more about us, poking fun or asking questions about things that are around today, like Britney Spears or Lady Gaga and the music part of it, or we'll do more current TV shows. Not that we don't cover older movies and TV shows, but there's a lot more current stuff, and especially with Facebook, we can keep stuff kind of up to date.
How do you gauge the difficulty of a question? Do you have to field test it to make sure that people not only can understand the turn of phrase and what you're asking? Because there's two things to a You Don't Know Jack question. First, you need to be a little bit clever, a little bit street smart to figure out what you're asking, and then you have to be a little bit book smart to actually know the answer. So it seems there's two variables at play here. Do you have to test them to make sure that people get both ends of that?
We have a room full of chimps, No, I'm just kidding. No, sometimes what we do here is we'll grab people around here that don't actually work on You Don't Know Jack, because Jellyvision is a big company, and we have people who aren't working actually in the games division. So sometimes we'll bring those guys by and test the game on them, and then we'll give them an orange juice before they go, or we'll just play it by ear, because we've actually tested this many times in front of behind the big screen where you could see it's a one-way mirror, and we definitely noticed exactly what you just said, which is that our questions can get a little convoluted, so we have to make sure that everything we're doing is very clear to the user, and even still some people are going to be confused, but like I said, sometimes people just don't know jack.
Yeah, that's kind of the point of the game. Do all the writers work on questions? Because in addition to very funny questions and very funny answers, there's all this other comedy, really, throughout the game. There's fake sponsors, there's funny retorts for wrong answers, and all that kind of thing. Is there anyone who's working on just that, or is everyone doing questions and other stuff too?
Everybody works on everything. That's why when we hire our writers, we sort of do a really thorough process of can you do this? Can you do that? Can you do this? Because we want everybody to be able to do everything. So, but we do have specific times. Like we'll say, okay, now this week we're just going to write our some funny commercials. We have fake commercials in the games.
Later tonight on the season premiere of Hoofs of Love. 18 women living in a house competing for the love of one famous horse.
Oh my God, he was in that movie Hidalgo? He was the one that wasn't Viggo Mortensen.
Who's up for body shots?
But it's not just fun and games, because all's fair in love and horse.
Most of these women are here to drink and be on TV. But for me, it's real. I'm falling in love with that horse.
Sorry, I am not here to make friends. I am here to a horse.
And it's all part of one horse's crazy journey to find love in L.A.
I'm afraid there's only one saddle left. Will it go to Tamara or Nikki?
Oh my gosh, pick me, pick me, pick me. Oh, let it be me. Don't say nay. That bitch better get off my horse.
It's time for an all-new season of Hoofs of Love. This horse is not just back, he's bareback.
So we'll say this is a commercial week. Send some ideas in. We'll go through. We'll pick out the best ideas, and then we'll go off and record them. And we'll bring in voice talent from these people might know from outside of Jellyvision, and then we'll record these commercials. So we'll segment it like that. And they're definitely they're definitely writers who are like, oh, that's you need a really funny opening line from Cookie. He has an opening line for every episode. You want to go to this guy because he generally can, if you're in a pinch, he can really get a good one for you. And if you're trying to punch up a joke or something, there are people who are stronger at that. So everyone has their strengths, but we do like everybody to be able to do everything.
What are the elements besides the questions that need to be written? You have stuff like the fake ads.
Yeah, we've got the fake ads. We do all sorts of media outreach. So we do posts. We try to keep our posts on Facebook and Twitter updated. So we're writing those things constantly every day. And for both You Don't Know Jack fan page and for Cookie Masterson's fan page, our host, he has his own page on Facebook.
So you have the writers doing that so that it is in the voice of the game.
Absolutely. So all that's in the voice of the game.
Does Cookie run his Facebook page, or do you run the Facebook page? The writers on the Facebook page?
Well, Cookie, we don't really know what Cookie does. So he basically gives us a couple of hours of his time every day, and that's it. So, sometimes he posts on the page, we have no idea it's coming, and sometimes we post on his behalf.
So, I'm sorry, I interrupted your list of things that needed to be written.
Oh, okay. Well, there's the let's see. That may be exhausting it. There's the funny commercials. We also do we have video ads. So the video ads that sort of open up each episode, which are kind of related to the sponsors. We help the art team write those, and the music guys concept those. And then if there's anything like, sometimes we'll do promotions with outside groups, and we'll be like, hey, can you write a You Don't Know Jack question for insert blank product here. So we do that kind of stuff every once in a while.
Who does the incredible, and this has been a hallmark of the You Don't Know Jack series since the beginning, the transitional songs between questions? Every question has its own fun jingle to announce what number question you're on. And they're almost like always a parody. Who's putting those together?
Oh, well, those are a couple people are working on those. I mean, everybody's giving their input, but our music director is our music and audio director is Andy Poland. He's a genius, and then we've got our art team led by Allard Laban, who is also an art genius, and we've got a couple of our artists, Tim Sniffen and Jody Evenson, that work on those. So we've got not only do we have funny, talented people on the writing staff, but we have it in the music department and the art department too.
Do you have a favorite question jingle from over the years?
Well, I think the classic one, the classic one that a lot of people remember is the question 4 from way back when. You're my question 4.
Forevermore, I love you. My question 4.
And that was how that one went. And then at the very end, there'd be, the question that cares that came up on the screen. And so when we released the most recent version of the game on console, and even a little bit here on the Facebook version, we tried to make a little homage to that with the question 4 being question that cares.
Something that really stands out in my mind about You Don't Know Jack, when I remember the old games, is that they had, that you had, a funny retort for a lot of wrong answers. And most of the game is multiple choice, and you know that occasionally someone's going to pick B instead of C. But even the questions that involve typing in answers, you guys seem to have speculated what wrong answers people might guess, and then have a wise-ass reply to that. It's almost like a magic trick, where it's almost like becoming something more than a video game. It really is like you're participating in a live show at that point. How hard was that?
Well, I mean, that's sort of like you said. I think that's kind of what separates us from other games. We really try to make the user feel like they're engaged in the experience, and that Cookie is talking to them and reacting to them. So yes, we write custom dialogue responses based on what you pick, and perhaps even your score at the time, or like you said, when you type in specific things, Cookie will have a response to that.
Like if you type in your name in the beginning, sometimes it'd be like, Jeff, real creative, and this is not something you're picking from a list. You type Jeff. So I don't know that I can think of any other video game that, thought that far ahead and anticipated that kind of thing.
Yeah, true. And also, if you want to really get Cookie going, you might want to type in some curse words there. That'll really get
that I have seen. I think a lot of video games going back to like text adventures, because they know the first thing you're going to type in is a curse word.
Right.
So I remember King's Quest IV, which had graphics. This is not the earliest text adventure, but if you were like shit, it'd be like, that's not very proper, Rosanna or whatever her name was.
That's right. Right.
So that is a great game. It seems like now it's almost like a regular TV show that you're putting up, where there's an episode that needs to be produced every week. But when you were doing one CD-ROM for the PC and that was the product, how long did it take to record all that dialogue? Because there must be hundreds of hours of dialogue over the game.
Oh yeah, I mean, in fact, it's probably thousands.
Like now, you're probably knocking it out. I imagine, you chip away at it, like you were saying. Cookie does a few hours at a time.
Right. Well, there's sort of like two levels to it. There's the baked-in, dialogue that he's going to have responding to the general things that happen throughout any game, and then there's the custom stuff that's for each episode. And so, we had in the most recent console version, to speak to that one, we had 73 episodes, 11 questions each. Each one of those could have 8 to 12 different dialogue slots associated with them. So you're talking thousands and thousands of dialogues. So yeah, I mean, I don't know the exact number of how many hours, but it's a lot.
How long did it take to put together one of the CD-ROMs back in the day, to complete one You Don't Know Jack product?
Oh gosh, that was like a nine month cycle. I think was about average. And then for this most recent console version, it was about the same, a little bit shorter, a little bit tighter deadlines on this one.
Do you prefer the new system where you're just putting out a smaller amount of You Don't Know Jack every week?
Yeah, it's fun because you get to keep up with things that are happening in the news right now. Of course, you don't really get a break, so it's sort of like, but that's part of the fun of it, I think. I mean, it keeps it fresh, and and the other good thing is, if you put out an episode on Wednesday and it's sort of like, well, that was an okay episode, you have a chance to come right back with a really strong one on Friday.
So let's talk about this Facebook version and a little more about how it works. Each time you go to it, you are playing one episode. One episode is a game. and a game is a little shorter on the Facebook one. I think it's 5 questions, right?
Right. Yeah, we sort of like said what we looked at, like how long does the user normally spend playing a Facebook game in one sitting, and so we kind of based it on that.
And how often do you put up new episodes?
We put them up right now. We're putting them up on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at midnight Central Time each of those nights. So if you want to be the first one to play, you can log on then.
One thing that seems really interesting about it is that you can do something that you couldn't do in the old version of You Don't Know Jack. The old version kind of had to be like a DVD, like a movie, a thing you had forever, and that was it. But now that it's this living, breathing thing, you can do things like work in current events. What other advantages have you found working on this new Facebook version?
Well, like I said, working in current events, and the big thing is, you can sort of tap into like, well, the episode we put up on Wednesday, we covered X, Y, and Z. So Friday, we're gonna cover these other 3 or 4 different topics, and that way you know that people are playing them in a specific order. That's kind of one of the things I like about it, is because you could say, well, here's what they heard on Wednesday. Now we can sort of switch it up a bit, and here's what they can get on Friday. So when you have a disc, and people have an episode selector or whatever, they can play them in any order they want, and you never know how they're gonna perceive it. So that's one of the things from an editorial perspective. That's sort of one of the things I like about this.
The old versions also, this episodes thing came somewhere down the line. I feel like the old one just had 800 or whatever it was questions, and then they were all mixed up and you'd get them in whatever order. But now there's specific episodes, so you make sure you're not, we haven't played 19 yet, so we'll see all new questions when we play 19.
Right, exactly. And I always thought that was an improvement, because what would happen would be, you get to in the older version of the game, you'd get, you'd be 30 episodes in, and now you're starting to get some repeat questions, and it would be just maybe 1 or 2 throughout an episode, but it really, if you were playing with people who hadn't played those questions before, it'd be unfair. This way, you can play every single question and be sure that you're never going to see a duplicate.
Are there any other improvements, things like that, that the series evolved over the years, that even that's not really a big change, like you wouldn't put that on the back of the box, but it makes a big difference in how much you can enjoy the game?
Right. Well, I think one of the things, we just sort of honed in on which of the question types people really, really responded to. We've got like you said, we've got the standard multiple choice questions, but we've got the dis or dat.
Can you explain how dis or dat works?
Dis or dat, for instance, so there'll be 7 items. I mentioned Dr. Phil earlier. We had a Dr. Phil one where it was sort of is it one of the top 10 pieces of advice from Dr. Phil for a first date, or a children's board game? And so it was something like, don't spill the beans, don't tip the waiter, I forget what the rest of them were, but that's the kind of idea. So you get 7 items in a row, and you kind of have to pick, is it this one or that one? Or, it's, or sometimes it's a both. I think there was one we did recently that was, is it a character from the Nutcracker, a brand of vodka, or both? So, so that's sort of the concept of the dis or dat.
It seems like this new version of You Don't Know Jack being on Facebook obviously has a lot of advantages, but are there any drawbacks?
Drawbacks. Let's see. Well, there's an advantage and a drawback. One of the advantages, because we're kind of in a beta stage right now, so there's still some bugs that are getting worked out. The advantage is, people can tell us, oh, hey, maybe you could do this, maybe you can do that, and we can sort of change the game on the fly. On the other hand, sometimes there are bugs that lead to that. So it's sort of a half 6 of one, half dozen the other. It's good that people can tell us there are bugs in the game, and we can fix those on the fly, which would be better than if it was on a console game where we couldn't fix it, which definitely always happens. But on the other hand, because we're constantly changing things and updating things, some things can get a little wonky. But luckily, I think for the most part, if it ever gets to the point where people lose game credit or something, we obviously can refund all that immediately. So pluses and minuses on that front.
Now, what is a game credit?
Okay, so currently on Facebook, you buy game credits. So you buy games, and you get 1 free game if you show up every day. So every day, free game for everybody. So if you show up, log in, you get a free game. And then if you want to play more games, then you can buy packs of games. It's sort of how we have it set up right now. You can buy a 5-pack, 10-pack, 20-pack, or 40-pack, and those game credits just sort of go up into your little credit list. Anytime you want to play, log in. If you want to play more than 1 game per day, you can play and put in another coin.
So for free, you can play You Don't Know Jack once per day, but if you want to play more than once per day, that's when you got to buy credits.
Right, and then you can also buy a couple other things. Right now, you can buy some of our performance enhancers, which help enhance your score.
Now, how does the performance enhancers make you feel from a game design perspective? Are you afraid that that's giving people that are willing to pony up real money an advantage in the game? Because it is. I mean, that's what's happening. So how do you mitigate that?
It definitely is. The way I like to put it is, we put it in there. Look, if you want to use it, that's on your conscience.
I haven't used one, but I'm sure Cookie has something to say when you do it.
And well, the other thing is, there are a lot of stupid people, and we want to give them a little hand.
Just give them a little leg up.
If you really, really, really feel like you need it, go ahead and use it. And even if you don't, if you're just trying to beat your friends, that's the other thing we haven't talked about. When you play a game on Facebook, if any of your friends have already played that episode, then they could very well show up in your sort of leaderboard, and you're trying to beat them for that episode. So you get this sort of competitive back and forth against your friends, and if you see your friends used a performance enhancer, you might use one too.
Can you see if your friends used a performance enhancer?
Yes.
Okay, so they're not lying, at least.
They're not
They're
lying.
just cheating.
It's clear. Yeah, exactly. So you have to cheat back, or you can just say, "Hey, I'm going to beat you," even though you're cheating.
Yeah, and I think that's also having your friends there is one of the major advantages of having it on Facebook that we haven't even discussed yet. Is that the game's like already plugged in to everyone you know, and the way the multiplayer works is like you kind of, even though your friends aren't playing at the exact same time as you can see how they did step by step. It's like, sharing a trial run in Mario Kart, so you can see how your friend did it and compete against that ghost, but in trivia version. It's the trivia version of that.
Yeah, in fact, that's what we call it around here internally. We call it the ghost player. That's what we call it. So it's sort of like,
I thought you were going to say you called it the ghost player from Mario Kart specifically, and I was really excited.
I didn't want to copyright infringement. No, but no, we just call it ghost player. But I mean, that's sort of just an internal term. But yes, you're right. You play it, Jeff. You play it, and then I log on, and there's you, and I see every answer that you gave. If it's a gibberish question, I'll see what answer you typed in for the gibberish question. If it's the jack attack, I'll see if you got one right, or if you got it right and I got it wrong, or if we both got it right. And so, yeah, that way you feel like you really feel like people have told us, you really feel like you're playing with your friends right there at that time, but it doesn't require that you get all your friends together and play at the exact same time.
The performance enhancers don't really bother me because, you don't know, Jack, for me anyway, it's not about getting a high score. It's like fun. It's almost like watching a TV show, but it's, you're participating in it. I mean, it's about the writing. It's not about just getting the highest score. So it doesn't bother me, but are you guys selling these? Is this a product people are really interested in?
We are selling them. People, we were like, hey, do you think people were going to buy these? Well, let's put them out there and see if they buy them. And you know what? People are buying them. And I would say when I log into play, it's an average of 1 to 2 people, maybe in the of my friends that have played the episode that are using them. So people are definitely using them, and they definitely, I think the biggest benefit they give you is if you get a question wrong, they sort of, mitigate the wrongness a little bit.
Oh, I was wondering about that because it's a multiplier, and I was wondering if it also multiplied how much you lose if you get something wrong.
Yeah, it's sort of subtract. It's a smaller. You lose a smaller percentage.
Well, maybe I should invest in these. You guys, like we already talked about, you have these fake, very funny, fake commercials for very funny products in the game. Have you ever considered maybe having real advertisements for real products? Is that part of the business model?
Well, it's definitely come up from time to time.
I'm sure someone suggested it, and not one of the writers.
You're absolutely right, Jeff. No, I mean, back in the day, actually, when we used to have an old version of an internet called the Net Show, or internet version of the game called the Net Show, and then we had the Web Show. But back in the Net Show, way back in the late '90s, we actually did have interstitial ads that we were little. Animated ads that we actually did sell a few of those to folks. And then we also did sort of sponsorships of entire episodes. I remember we did one for AMC when they were doing like a Hollywood or a Halloween movie fest on AMC. And then we did an M&M's one at one point. So we did sort of a larger, like they're sponsoring the entire episode, and that may happen on Facebook down the road, but there's definitely a line like these are the real sponsors and these are clearly the fake sponsors.
The real sponsors will be happy to know they're being separated too.
Yes, I would hope that a respected brand wouldn't want to be shoved in, right next to Animal Lovers Boutique and Glug Light beer.
It's so cool for me to see You Don't Know Jack evolving over the years. From it has an interesting origin. I've mentioned a few times this episode I've referred to You Don't Know Jack as a video game. Do you guys call it a video game? I don't feel totally right. That doesn't feel totally accurate when I say it.
More often, we call it a game show.
Exactly. Right. But
it's not a real game show. You don't win real money, but I mean, it definitely that's the whole oeuvre of the game. It's a game show,
and it's interesting to see it on these wildly different platforms like the PC and the console and this thing Facebook, which no one could have imagined when the game started, and but still it looks the same.
Yeah. I mean, that's sort of like. I think the biggest challenge every time we come out with a new version of the game is to make it feel new and fresh and designed specifically for that format, but also still maintain the thing that everybody loves about You Don't Know Jack. And I think so far with most of the versions of the game, we've done that, and I think the Facebook version particularly, we've gotten more positive comments about the Facebook version than a lot of our previous versions. So it seems to work. It's always a balance of innovating and then staying true to the core game.
Yeah, I think what makes You Don't Know Jack so unique amongst other, I'm not going to use the word video game, I'm calling it interactive games, is that it does look the same as it looked 15 years ago, and it doesn't matter because it's not about the graphics or anything like that. It's all about the writing. The game's all text, and I think there's very few games. I mean, they don't make text adventures anymore, so there's very few games where that's true.
For us, it's like the text is like we've perfected the art of text. I mean, it's sort of like our art department would say that the text, I mean, they spend so much time, perfecting how the text looks, how it flies on the screen, how it flies on and off the screen, the movements, the subtle movements of the text, how it floats in and out. As they spend just as much time on that as probably someone does animating a football player tackling another football player. But it's definitely a simpler game. It's a clean, simple game. But when we released the console game in 2011. And we got the reviews, and the reviews started coming in, and we were in the mid 80s on, on Metacritic, and it was like, it's saying exactly what you said. They're like, the graphics, it's not about the graphics. It's very simple, but it's still fun.
With all that in mind, what happened with the TV show version? Because I've been a fan of the show. I've been a fan of the show. I'm calling it a show. I've been a fan of You Don't Know Jack forever. I remember when the TV show came on. I was excited about it, and I watched it. Did you guys enjoy the product? Were you pleased with the final product there?
Oh, now you've painted me in a corner, Jeff. No, well, okay.
I did. Let me say I did. I don't remember it very well, but I think I liked it.
Yeah, okay, so we obviously liked some of it, and some of it we didn't like. We certainly did not feel it was, it was as good as it could have been. And then the show lasted the 6 week run, and we know why it only lasted a 6 week run. But so it could have been better. That said, I mean, there was still something about it that we loved, and people still kind of love about it. It was just kind of what we learned is that there's this magic that happens when you feel like you're engaged in the game show, that you lose a little bit of that when you take it and now there are other people on the game show and you're just watching them. And I think that was sort of like the key thing. But it was an interesting experience. I was out there I went out there to LA to write for that, and Tom Gottlieb, who is the voice of Cookie Masterson, he was out there both writing and performing as the Uber announcer for the show, and then Paul Rubens was the host of the show. And it was a very interesting process, but I think in some ways it was a little disjointed, and it just didn't quite come together in the best way possible.
So how did you guys try to correct for that element of interactivity that's missing?
Oh, you mean on the TV show?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, one of the things is I think one of the things is like you don't want to have people on the show who are answering too quickly, because then it doesn't give the user or the viewer at home the time to answer. I'm not saying we got stupid people to play the people on the contestants on the show, but it's sort of the same thing. I think they do the same thing with other game shows, like Wheel of Fortune. If they had a genius on there that was answering all the puzzles immediately, then the people at home wouldn't get to play. So it's always, you want to make sure that the people at home get to play along. And the Jellyvision also had another game show that was on the USA Network, which was Smush, the game show, which aired on USA, and it had kind of a similar thing where it lasted a little longer. It had the Ken Ober, the host, was from the old MTV Remote Control show. He was the host. Yeah, sure. And it lasted quite a bit longer than the Jack Jack TV show did. But it's had the same thing. It's sort of like you kind of wanted to play more as opposed to watching other people play. So I think that's why our game works best when you're playing it.
Do you think if you had another try, are there things you would do differently, or do you think You Don't Know Jack is an interactive game and it's not meant to be one way, beaming it at people entertainment?
I think in today's day and age, we could probably find a lot of ways to engage the user that maybe we couldn't have back then in 2000. I think it would be a different experience, and I wouldn't rule out the fact that we could probably pull it off.
Do you see the influence of You Don't Know Jack on quote-unquote real game shows?
Oh, geez. I don't know so much. The place that I've noticed it a little bit more is in actual video games, where I've seen more and more where there's more of a custom response to certain things that you do in games that wasn't quite there before. That's we sort of pioneered with You Don't Know Jack, which we were talking about earlier. But I do notice that when I'm playing games, myself on Xbox or Wii or whatever, I'm like, well, hey, that's 10 years ago, I don't think they would have, made that comment about that particular putt I just made on, Tiger Woods golf. But now they do. So I kind of see it there. As far as like on actual TV game shows, no, I don't think so. I mean, if anything on TV game shows, I think they've become a little bit more about, high production values, and that's we always had that in You Don't Know Jack, but I don't think we're in the realm of the like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire kind of, giant, huge experience with lights and beating heartbeats and that kind of. I mean, we have a little bit of that, but I don't think we've affected them as much as no, they haven't affected us either. No, it's been no connection whatsoever.
Well, I don't know. I think that a show like Jeopardy. I'm not a Jeopardy historian, but there was definitely a time when Jeopardy was very dry, and the questions or the answers, as it were very simple, and they just state a fact and expect you to know it. Now, if you watch Jeopardy, and they talked about this a little when Watson was there, and I think this was made Watson's appearance on that show so impressive, the Jeopardy vet questions kind of have the same thing, where there's a clever turn of phrase, or there's an interesting theme in the category that you have to kind of figure out what they're asking. And Who Wants to Be a Millionaire a little bit too.
Yeah, now that you mention it, I in Jeopardy specifically, I have noticed a couple times where I'm like, exactly what you said. I said, that kind of seems like the way You Don't Know Jack would ask a question. And I've seen that a couple times. And of course, one of the classic ones from way back when was Win Ben Stein's Money, which actually came out after us, but they had a very similar way of asking, or they had categories for questions that were, our categories are kind of funny, and they kind of had a very similar approach to that. So I don't know which came first, chicken or egg there.
I mean, they're not ripping off your questions, but I think you guys uncovered something that that a new way to ask questions that was more interesting than the old way, and I think that had influence.
Well, I perhaps you're right, and I hope you are.
Do you have a favorite game show host?
Oh, goodness. Well, unfortunately, yes. I mean, Richard Dawson, he just died. We actually did a question about that, from the old Family Feud. And, of course, from the old Match Game, he was on that. He's a kind of an old-school kind of guy, But, any man who could get away with, making out with every woman that ever walked on that stage and still be funny, I give you kudos to the man. I love that guy.
That's like that type doesn't really exist anymore. I think game shows, and maybe this is Keith Ober in Remote Control, you'll often get like a stand-up comedian hosting that, which is great. I love stand-up comedians, but that Wink Martindale, Richard Dawson type, I don't know. That's maybe a dying breed.
Yeah, oh man, Wink Martindale. I mean, and Chuck Woolery, those
Right,
guys.
right.
I mean, those guys were just like. I mean, I could name even more that people wouldn't even know. I like the old Card Sharks. I used to watch that all the time.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, you don't get those guys anymore. And that's what Richard Dawson, like, the man just created, like, that show. Imagine that show if, like, Drew Carey was hosting it. Not nothing against Drew Carey, but well, actually, you can imagine that show with comedians hosting it
Totally.
because about 12 comedians have hosted Family Feud since Richard Dawson died, and to varying levels of success or not success, I guess
Yeah.
you could say.
I think Steve Harvey's doing a pretty good job.
Yeah, he's got. I've never actually seen an episode with him hosting it. I've just seen a bunch of YouTube
Well,
clips.
that's the thing. They've gone full bore on the social media for Family Feud, and if you go to their YouTube channel, this isn't like random people putting it up. I think they're manufacturing these like crazy moments. They're setting it up to let them happen, but they seem to be aware of what they're doing, which is kind of an interesting way of seeing Family Feud evolve.
Well, that's true. In fact, I remember a question when. Louis Anderson. Do you remember when he was the host?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Show me pizza.
That's right. Well, I remember I was very close to what I was going to say. One of the questions that he asked was name something that men lie about the size of. Now, is there a more leading question than that than that question?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of that now. I think the Steve Harvey show appears to be all set up, which is fine. Do you have a favorite game show of all? You seem to be familiar with the genre.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I would say, well, the old Match Game, which I wish they would bring back, was hilarious because it was just 6 comedians making finishing jokes.
That's an interesting one because Match Game isn't even really it's not even really a game show. Like the game show is just a facade to set up these comedians
Right.
making jokes.
Exactly. And of course I loved the old Gong Show back in the day too. I mean, I'm just showing my age now, but the Gong Show was just, I mean, that was just to me that was the pinnacle of comedy when I was a young youth. But today, we actually did a version of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Jellyvision did for PC actually back in 2000. We got to meet Regis. Yeah, I got to meet Regis. He came here to the office, and he got here at like 7:00 in the morning. There were like 3 of us here, just 3 of us. And he opens the door and he's like, "Hello, jelly people!" But there was no one here for him to say hello to that loud anyway. But it was pretty awesome. And he took a nap. He took a nap on our couch up here, and I sort of like told maybe he'll hear. He probably won't hear this.
No, he's a fan. He listens.
Sure, okay. I said, I got everybody in the office. I'm like, if you want to see Regis sleeping, now's the time. We all just sort of did a single file by Regis's couch while he was sleeping. So that was interesting. And then we went out to dinner, and it was fun. He's a character. Regis is.
Is there a game show that you think you would particularly excel at if you were given the opportunity to appear on?
I'm pretty good at Wheel of Fortune. When I watch that at home, people get mad. But I would like to see how I do on Jeopardy. But I always wonder, would they allow me to be on Jeopardy because I'm kind of, I kind of have been working in trivia for so long now. I know really a lot of those useless facts. So
you're good at trivia because you've been working in trivia.
Sure. I mean, we've done here. I think the last count was something over, 20,000 questions in the history of You Don't Know Jack. So I mean, it's just a lot of questions. I can't say I remember all of them, but I certainly remember a good portion of them. So that really helps me when I'm playing. I said again, that's the question. Would they let me on Jeopardy? I don't know.
Do you ever play Trivial Pursuit against your friends?
No one will play with me.
No one will play?
No, it's really pointless.
Were you into trivia before you started working on You Don't Know Jack?
Yeah, I'm just a big games player myself, so I was into games. That's one of the things that I kind of bring, I think, to the table here is that I try to, I like game strategy and how games are set up and making sure that everything's fair and is fun for everyone at all times. That's sort of my big thing is like making sure everyone is engaged at all times. I think sometimes when you play a game like Trivial Pursuit or some other games like that, what happens is you're sitting there and someone goes on a run of answering 5 or 6 straight questions and they're rolling the dice and they're getting roll again and it's just going, and you don't do anything for 10, 20 minutes at a time. And to me, that's the hallmark of just a bad gameplay experience.
Yeah, Trivial Pursuit's the worst. I hate hate playing Trivial Pursuit.
Yeah, so the whole thing is keep people engaged at all times. Everyone should be paying attention at all times and feel like they have a stake in what's going on.
What games do you think are particularly good examples, besides You Don't Know Jack, obviously, of this kind of design?
That's a good question. Well, when you're talking about like board games or home games, things like that, some of the classics like Taboo, I think is great because not only you're playing, but then the other team gets a chance to steal. Anything where the other team gets a chance to steal or pay attention all the time, I think that's good.
And You Don't Know Jack has that via Screw Your Neighbor.
Yes, like the console version definitely has the Screw Your Neighbor version.
Which, for those that never played the game, lets you force your opponents to answer a question that you think they don't know the answer to.
That's right. Of course, if they answer it, then you get screwed.
Right.
That's how that works. Yeah, but as far as like, console games or PC games or internet games right now, I'd have to say anything not by Zynga. And that's again, now I'm in legal trouble.
But I think that was why I was so excited to see You Don't Know Jack on Facebook, because I like games. I'm like you. I love video games and board games, but I never. These Facebook games are huge. They're a major leg of the gaming industry now. And yet, I've never played a Facebook game I enjoyed. And when I played You Don't Know Jack, I actually invited... I've never done this with any app on Facebook ever before. I invited my friends to play.
Yeah, that's the thing. If I could get one thing... I appreciate that. If I could get one statement out about You Don't Know Jack on Facebook, it's exactly what you just said. People tell us over and over again, I hate Facebook games, but I love You Don't Know Jack on Facebook. And so, again, to us, it's sort of like second nature. It's sort of like, well, yeah, put this game on Facebook, and it seems to fit perfectly, and it engages people at all times. Where I think that there are a lot of other most other games out there, they're not for me. But maybe clearly there are people who like playing them. But I think if you give You Don't Know Jack a shot, you'll enjoy it perhaps a little bit more than any other game on Facebook. My opinion.
I agree. I'm with you. And I host the show.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you.
We're talking about perfectly balanced games. We're talking about board games. I got to ask, are you into Settlers of Catan?
I am not. I actually have never played Settlers of Catan.
Oh, my God, dude, you got to check it out. Because I think it exemplifies, and like listeners are rolling their eyes right now at me bringing up Catan again, but it exemplifies exactly what you're talking about. And it's the gameplay of it is really perfect, really, in the way that everyone's always involved. You're never too far behind. Every turn you have an opportunity to do something. And based on what I know we just met, but based on what you just said, I think you'd really enjoy it.
Yeah, I think there are definitely some folks I know here that on the team that play it, and but I've never. But what you were saying, about the ability to catch up and win, anybody can win at any time. That's also a key thing, and I think there are some games that don't do that well. Like some games will do. Like I remember back on the old Nintendo, it was like Jordan versus Bird. It was the old Michael Jordan versus Larry Bird game. It'd be like, you'd get a 20-point lead on your opponent, and then somehow all of your shots would suddenly start missing and the opponent would catch up, and it seemed kind of fake, a fake way to let people catch up.
I still call that NBA Jam syndrome.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's the NBA Jam syndrome. And so that's what we definitely don't do that, Jack, but what we do is we make it so that, there's a chance. There's a chance with the final round, the Jack attack that happens at the end of every game. It's worth a lot of money, and you can really, really catch up at the end of the game, so you're never really out of it. And we try to balance out the points so that it works out. So I think it's another key of a good game, making sure one, that no one's just sitting there doing nothing, and two, that they can always have a chance to come back and win.
It's interesting because I always thought of You Don't Know Jack as at its core just trivia. So it's interesting to hear how these traditional video game lessons apply to it too. Are there any others? Like what else should a video game do that you tried to do with You Don't Know Jack? And I'm just talking gameplay, not the actual questions themselves.
A lot of the things that we've learned over time, we've kind of learned from our own game. It's sort of like, one of the things that really helped us, when we were making the current console game was, because we hadn't really made games for Xbox, PlayStation, Wii yet. We would look at other games like Rock Band, which is not, a real analog to You Don't Know Jack, but is a game that we respect and like, and Actually a magazine came out before we even released the console version and said the top 10 party games of all time, and Rock Band was number 1, and You Don't Know Jack was number 5. And we had not even had a game released for like 8 years, so we took that as like a compliment. But we looked at how they sort of got people into the game, the front end of the game. What's the seamless way of getting people like signed in, hooked up, how everyone's controllers hooked up and working properly, and then getting people into the game as quickly as possible, but still allowing for people to be like in a party atmosphere. And so we used a lot of their techniques as sort of like an example for how we would do it. We didn't obviously steal the exact way, but and so there's games like that are out like right now that maybe aren't exactly analogs to a trivia game, but that use things that we feel work well in sort of like a party setting, and that's sort of the other kind of aspect of playing You Don't Know Jack on console anyway is sort of like playing with your friends and being in a party setting. So we did use some of those things.
Yeah, I was actually playing Rock Band 3 just this weekend, and I know how long it's been out, and I was reflecting on how the series has grown. And when you play that first Guitar Hero game, obviously an incredible game, but they really make it hard. Like, you gotta play some songs you don't like to unlock the songs you do like. You have to just guess what difficulty level's appropriate, and then you're committed to it.
Right.
You can't, like, if someone comes and goes, it's a whole ordeal. You gotta back all the way out. Now, Rock Band 3, they've really sharpened that knife, and people can come and go as they please. You can change difficulties in the middle of this song. All the songs come unlocked, and they're just like, go have fun. They've really, like, gotten out of the way and let the main thing, the actual playing Rock Band, or in your case, the trivia, take center stage.
Right, yeah, and that's the thing with being on Facebook now, like I said before, we can make those kind of changes on the fly, and it's that we don't have to wait for like, oh, well, the last console version did this, and here's what we would do differently. It's like, well, what do we want to do differently? Let's do it, and we can do it, we can put it up, and we can put it up right now and have people play it and give us feedback and make changes on the go. So that's one of the cool things about being on Facebook now.
Yeah, it's really cool. I'm really excited, kind of have You Don't Know Jack back in my life. I don't know, I had a lot of the old PC ones. I think I had at least 3 of them, and I think I had the movies one too. I kind of lost track of it around the time of consoles, just because my consumption patterns changed to that. Like, I wouldn't buy a 40 or 50 or whatever you guys charge for a disc of just You Don't Know Jack, but I still love the game, and the Facebook version is, the perfect way to play it now. It gives it in like a really good digestible serving size. It's fun. All your friends can be involved, and it's free for them to get involved too. And I'm just very excited about it. I have one last question. I went to Jellyvision's website trying to track you guys down, and the games is just like a small percentage of the website. It's like a subsection. What else does Jellyvision do?
Well, there's a whole other huge culture here of people who are working on something entirely different. And in fact, they have more employees, and like as reflected by the website, they have more employees in the Jellyvision Lab is what that's called. There's Jellyvision Games and Jellyvision Lab. And the Jellyvision Lab, they do interactive conversations for outside businesses. So they'll work with healthcare companies or other companies who are trying to sell or inform or teach things to their customers or even to their own employees. For instance, explaining benefits to a large company needs to explain their benefits to their employees. So this Jellyvision Lab will put together an informative but yet engaging experience where it explains it to you, it's interactive, it asks questions, it's got a little bit of humor in it, some interesting art in it, and it kind of draws you through, and sort of, it's more of an educational and or sort of sales kind of angle on things.
How does
but still using that sort of engagement sort of like someone's talking to you, you're giving input, and that's how we're drawing you through the experience. So that's kind of like the tie it has to You Don't Know Jack. Someone's talking to you, you're giving input, and we're responding.
It's an interesting thing for the company to specialize in, and it's cool to see that it has both really fun applications like You Don't Know Jack and really boring ones like talking about health insurance.
Well, you said it, not me, Jeff.
Well, Steve, thank you so much I've been a long-time fan of the project. This was really a pleasure talking.
It was fun talking to you, Jeff. Thank you for having me on.
I know it sometimes sounds like I'm kissing up to the guest, but keep in mind, I book the guests, so I only get people, and also no one's making me do the show, so I only am doing this to talk to people whose work I do love and who I am a huge fan of and who I'm interested in. And I wasn't just saying it because I was talking to Steve. You guys should really go check out You Don't Know Jack on Facebook. It's free, and it's great, and I love it. Thank you so much for listening to the show. I will be back on Tuesday, new episode. I'll remind you, if you follow me on Twitter, where I am at Jeff Rubin Show, on Tumblr, where I am jeffrubin.com, youtube.com/jeffrubin, and my Facebook fan page. Bye for now.